Internet. It is I, the Malik Aaron, and welcome back to Box Office Predictions. Today, we're going to be talking about The Flash, a movie that I honestly didn't know would ever exist, but we have it now, and I'm going to talk about it. So, as usual, we're going to be going over the pros and cons. So, let's get to it. Pros. This is the latest DCEU flick, one of the last before the great reboot in 2025. The DCU, which will start with Superman Legacy. And, the DCEU, it's had its, problems. Lots of problems that I will go over in detail later when we get to the cons, but they do have a history of success, mostly box office success, but some critical successes too. But in terms of box office, I mean, Man of Steel, despite being very divisive, made a lot of money. Batman v Superman didn't make $1 billion, which I imagine that's that's forever scarred Warner Brothers. The fact that BVS didn't make $1 billion when it should have. It could have if it was better, but word of mouth was so abysmal, the movie crumbled after opening weekend. Hell, after opening day. And yeah, just ugh. But it made 872 million, so it's still a decent amount of cash. Suicide Squad, despite being having a great marketing campaign, being hated by everyone, made over 700 million domestic worldwide. Wonder Woman made over 800 million. It was considered the first actually good DCU flick. Aquaman is their biggest hit, which is crazy to me. That made over like 300 million domestic, over 1.1 billion worldwide, which is absolutely nuts. And then Shazam did a decent amount considering it's smallish budget, at least small for superhero movies. And of all these, I mean, The Suicide Squad is a movie that it hurts that it failed because it's so damn good. And that movie, like with what James Gunn did with it, not to mention Peacemaker show, like that apparently convinced Warner Brothers or Warner Bros. Discovery to make him like the co-head of DC Studios with like Peter Safran. So he's like the main face of DC at this point. So yeah, DCEU, they've had a success in the past. I mean, a lot of their movies still made money, even if they weren't very good. They made money definitely. So I might as well label it as a pro, but there's a lot of negatives here, but I'm saving those for later. So that's pro number one. The DCU movies, they can make money sometimes. So that's pro number one. Pro number two, this is based off like the Flash character. Barry Allen. There's like different Flashes. There's Barry Allen, Wally West. This is Barry Allen. And the Flash is considered, he's one of the more recognizable DC characters ever. Like, I mean, there's like Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern. Those like the main faces of DC, and Flash is the main face of DC. It's kind of insane that it took us this long to get a Flash movie. Like, I'm just like, why is this so difficult? It's the Flash. He runs fast. Why is that so hard to make? I don't know. I mean, we got a Sonic the Hedgehog movie, two of them, before we got a Flash movie. Like, what the heck? And I remember this movie going through like so many problems. Like, directors just come like in and out, just like they're like, I'm gonna do this, and they say psych, and they walk away from the project. Like, I'm just like, is this movie ever gonna exist? Because I remember when this movie, I think it was supposed to come out in like the original plan. I remember like way back in the day was ugh, it was so long ago. There was like okay, BVS, Suicide Squad. What the Flash movie was supposed to come out before or after them. And I was like, this was like a cyborg movie, a Green Lantern Corps movie, Justice League Part 1 and 2. It was a different time. But yeah, like the Flash went through like so many problems, and then eventually they're like, okay, we got something. We can actually make this thing, and um, now we have it. But yeah, the Flash, extremely recognizable character. His first movie, first big budget movie, so I'm gonna label that as a pro. The Flash is brand name recognition by himself, so that's a pro. Another pro, I guess, is that reviews. Well, actually, no, I'm gonna label that as middle ground. I'll save that for later because I don't know if I'd call it a complete pro. So I'm gonna save that for later. There's another pro is that this is easily the biggest movie of the weekend. I mean, sure, there's Elemental, but that's a complete non-starter. So yeah, but this is obviously meant to be the big movie of the weekend. And in terms of competition, I mean, Across the Spider Verse is 2 weeks old. Transformers: Rise of the Beast, that movie is plummeting hard in second weekend as we speak, so that won't be a huge issue. Across the Spider Verse will definitely be a big issue. I'll explain that later. But yeah, in terms of like serious competition, there's nothing too bad out there. I mean, next weekend is pretty quiet, but then after that, you have Indiana Jones and Mission Impossible. That's when things get tough. But in terms of like competition right now, I mean, it's not too rough. Or it's not like it's just not too rough. So I'm gonna label that as a pro. The competition isn't the worst, so that's a pro. Trying to think of another pro. Uh, I guess Michael Keaton. Might as well mention him. Michael Keaton's presence as Batman. Michael Keaton was Batman with the Tim Burton movies. Batman from '89, the Batman Returns. He's reprising his role. Like you got the cape and cowl and everything. And I imagine he's probably the main reason why people want to see this movie, because it's sure as shit not because of Ezra Miller. That's for sure. I remember when like the trailer came out, the first trailer for this movie came out, and like I just scrolled through the comment section, and all I could see was Michael Keaton. People going nuts, people fanboying over Michael Keaton. So yeah, Michael Keaton is the main draw here. That is without question. He is the main draw. He is the reason why this movie is going to sell any tickets, pretty much. So, yeah, I'd say Michael Keaton's presence is definitely a pro here. I guess, and there's also, I guess, Ben Affleck's Batman too, but he's not as popular. It sucks what happened with Ben Affleck's Batman. He could have been so, like he could have been so good, but they gave him such shit material to work with, and it just didn't work. I still feel like Ben Affleck's Batman was missed potential to the max. Like, he looked the part, he looked like a Batman. He could have been great, but Warner Brothers failed him. Okay, so yeah, but still, this is like Ben Affleck's last role, like as Batman in this movie. So I guess that's a pro. Uh, trying to think of some other serious pros. I already mentioned. I guess I can mention how this movie, it's trying so hard. Okay. This movie is definitely being compared to No Way Home because both movies share a similar multiverse concept. Whereas in No Way Home, the whole gimmick of that movie is that, oh, here's different Spider-Man, here's Tobey Maguire, here's Andrew Garfield, and the villains from their respective universes all colliding at once. And here, it's because Barry decides he wants to like save his mom, and he goes back in time and he fucks up the whole multiverse and causes a whole bunch of shit, causes like a bunch of wacky stuff, like no more. Well, yeah, they meet like alternative Batman. And there's Supergirl in there. Michael Shannon as General Zod. He's back. Whole lot of stuff, and yeah, obviously, people are gonna be watching this movie either like they're mainly gonna be watching for Michael Keaton, but I imagine some people are gonna be watching it just to see who pops up in the movie, like in terms of cameos. A lot of cameos have been spoiled already because Warner Brothers are inept when it comes to um advertising and keeping secrets. Like this is the Flash's marketing campaign is the polar opposite of No Way Home. It's like No Way Home tried so damn hard keeping Toby and Andrew a secret, even though we all knew they were going to be in the movie anyway. It's like Warner Brothers, like they just like here's Michael Keaton. They just show him in the trailer. Like here you go. Like if they hid him in the marketing campaign, that would have made for a much bigger impact. But if they were to do that, they would have to focus a lot more on Ezra Miller, and there's a pretty good reason why they didn't want to do that. And I will explain that later. But yeah, like the whole multiverse shenanigans stuff and all the cameos, I imagine that's going to be, a plus for some people. So that's a pro, I guess. Um, I think that's it with pros. I think I mentioned all the important stuff. I guess I mentioned the ad campaign. Warner Brothers are pushing this movie very, very hard. They're pushing it down people's throats. They've been like proclaiming this movie. I think David Zaslav was like, "This is the greatest superhero movie of all I've ever seen." And I'm just like, really? I I don't believe that. I never believed that. I always thought they were just talking the movie up just to save it. Honestly, I thought that was really weird. How even James Gunn was like, this movie's great. This movie's incredible. This movie is the best superhero movie. And I'm like, bud, you made some good stuff. You made the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. You made the Suicide Squad. You honestly think The Flash is better than those? I don't think so. But yeah, the marketing machine, like everyone knows this movie's coming out this weekend. So marketing did their job, making people aware this movie exists. So that's a pro. And I think that's it with pros. Okay, well, middle ground stuff. Reviews. So reviews have been okay. It's at 66%, which I mean it's not terrible. It's the furthest thing from terrible. But it's not exactly overwhelmingly great. I mean it is better than a lot better than some other DCU movies. It's better than Shazam 2. It's better than Black Adam. um it's better than I'm trying to think of some others. I'm positive it's better than Wonder Woman 1984 and Justice League and Suicide Squad, the original Suicide Squad, and BVS and Man of Steel. So in terms of reviews, it's on like the upper echelon when it comes to the DCU. So there's that. Audience scores it's 86%, which is decent. But what really concerns me is its cinema score, a B, a straight up B. That is not good. that that is a really bad sign for a movie like this because audiences tend to be like very lenient. They tend to be like very forgiving of like big superhero movies. Like it doesn't matter if the movie's not that great. Most of the time they're just like superhero clap and they just clap when they see superheroes on the screen. Like they don't care that much. Like as long as it's entertaining, that's all that matters. So you expect a movie like this to get like an A minus or like an A, but a B is just oof. That screams really mid word of mouth. I mean, BVS had a cinema score of a B2, and we all know what happened to that movie. That movie crumbled real quick. So yeah, like a B is not ideal for a movie like this, not in the slightest. So yeah, so reviews are mid-ish. Audience score is fine, but cinema score is hella mid. So none of that is particularly good, but it's not exactly fatal either. So I'm gonna label that as middle ground. Another thing I'm gonna label as middle ground are its preview numbers, which are really not that good, honestly. Open with like 9.7 Thursday previews, which compared to other superhero movies, I mean, even this year, it doesn't look great. I mean, like Ant-Man 3, Guardians 3, Across the Spider-Verse, all with like 17 million in their Thursday previews. So, yikes. Trying to find like compare this to other movies. I'm not comparing this to Little Mermaid. Why would I compare it to that? So let's compare this to, I guess, Shazam. It looks better than Shazam at the Shazam 2, which was an absolute catastrophe. That would be like 3.4 million, so did a lot better than that. And to its credit, it did do better than Black Adam, which was a big old flop last year. That had a Thursday preview of 7.6. So 9.7 is a lot bigger than that. So was, decently like bigger than that. So there's that, I guess. But compared to other superhero movies, this looks weak as hell. The Suicide Squad from 2016. Um, that had a Thursday preview of, let me see, was it like 20.5 million? That movie was fueled by hype, and it hit like really high numbers for its Thursday preview, and The Flash couldn't even get to half of that. So, and The Flash was like fueled by, I don't know if I'd call it genuine hype. A lot of it felt extremely artificial. So, yeah, and I guess for comedy's sake, let's compare this to No Way Home. No Way Home. What was its Thursday preview? 50 million. So, there's that. um, yeah, obviously the Flash was never going to reach those numbers. Even though a lot of people are going to compare them to each other, even though like they're not really the same thing. Because I know the Flash movie is based off of, well, very partially based off of Flashpoint, which was like a thing they did in the comics. That was turned to like an animated movie, and then it was turned to like, it was used like the Flash TV show, and now it's being kind of used in this movie. But audiences don't know that. Most audiences don't even know what Flashpoint is. They're not gonna, general audiences are definitely not gonna know what Flashpoint is. So they're just gonna see it as a No Way Home ripoff. It doesn't matter if it's not true. That's what they believe. So, yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention another comparison. This is a comparison quite a few people have made. Venom. Venom, Denim. This thing. In the movie, where Venom mentioned, a turd in the wind. Yeah. So Venom in 2018 opened with like 10 million Thursday previews, opened with like 80 million opening weekend. So the fact that the Flash with a much bigger budget and much more like that's a lot more grandiose than Venom is. Venom was just a meme movie, and it still that opened better in Thursday previews than the Flash. That's a bad sign to me. But yeah, the Flash's preview numbers, they could be a lot better. I really thought this would hit like double digits when it comes to preview numbers, considering all the hype, I'm using air quotes here, hype surrounding the movie. You think, I thought it was at least done like 10 to 15 million, but going under that, that's not great. So I'm gonna label that as middle ground. Like it's not awful, but it's not great. Now we get to the actual cons. Ezra Miller. Okay. Where do I start with this person? Ooh, so Ezra Miller stars as the Flash, Barry Allen. The DCEU's Flash. And, you know, I don't even know where to begin with Ezra. Like, there's so much to discuss regarding all the shit they've done. um, I guess might as well start with like that big elephant in the room. Ezra's crimes. last year. Obviously, last year there's been like there were a lot of reports, a lot of news headlines regarding like Ezra's antics, which have gotten them arrested. Charged with shit. Like for a while, he was they were charged with like I think it was like robbery or something, and uh, and then there's like all these allegations that Ezra was like apparently grooming minors and it was like running like this weird cult or something. I haven't looked that deep into it, but none of it is good for the movie. None of it is good PR at all. And like I know people like to say, "Oh, all publicity is good publicity." That is garbage. That is garbage. Crimes, like committing crimes and being accused of some heinous shit, that is not good publicity at all. That is horrible publicity. That will kill. Like if you're like if someone is like a so like with controversy, okay. Controversy is a two-way street. Sometimes controversy can benefit a movie. We've seen that with like Passion of the Christ or Wolf of Wall Street or Joker, where the content of the movie is the whole controversy. But like when it's like real world stuff, like if it's like anything to do with like any like criminal activity, like anything to do with minors or animals, that will kill a movie immediately before it even comes out. So yeah, and this movie had to deal with that because Ezra Miller is a menace, and yeah, and the fact that Ezra hasn't gotten like any real like serious consequences because of this is fucked up beyond all belief. Like the fact that like them like Ezra and Amber Heard like they both kept it's so messed up that Ezra and Amber Heard, despite all the shit they've done, they kept their roles in Warner Brothers movies, like the DC movies. But Johnny Depp gets fired from Fantastic Beasts, and Henry Cavill gets fucked over entirely last year, like where he had his big cameo in Black Adam, and then a little after that, they're just like Henry, bye, get fucked, and he gets fired from Superman, and it's so frustrating that happened. That was like Warner Brothers, they supported the wrong people. And because of that, because of what Ezra Miller did, I made the decision to just say, you know what? No, I'm not going to support this. I am not going to watch this movie. I'm not going to see it in a theater. I'm probably not going to see it ever. I don't want to watch this. And, I don't even care if it's free. I don't want to do it because I feel like it's wrong. Like it just if I'd watched this movie, especially if I pay to watch this movie, it's gonna leave like a sinking feeling in my gut, and I don't want that. So yeah, like and even with like Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck and all of them in the movie, my answer when it came to watching the movie was a firm no, and that has not changed, and that will never change. Now, look, if you want to watch this movie, that is all up to you. You want to spend your money however you want, go right ahead. I won't stop you. I'm not going to tell you what to do. It's your choice. So if you want to watch The Flash, all more power to you. But for me, yeah, I'm not watching this movie. It wouldn't feel right. The same, and then I'm gonna do the same thing with Aquaman 2 later this year. I won't watch that either because Amber Heard's in it, and Amber Heard is a piece of trash, and I don't want to watch anything to do with her. So yeah. So Ezra Miller pretty much prevented me from watching this movie. And even if Ezra didn't do all that shit last year, I still wouldn't have been very excited about this movie because when it comes to Ezra Miller, I don't think they're any good as the Flash. Honestly, like the most I've seen of Ezra as the Flash was in Justice League, the theatrical cut. And oh my god, I could not stand them like at all. Ugh. They try to make him like this kind of like annoying character, like this a lovable annoying character, but The lovableness is not there. It's just straight up annoying, and I just wanted them to go away. I wanted them to leave. Like when you want a main character to leave, you fucked up. And yeah, just and like the fact that, and with this movie, the fact that there's not one but two Ezra Millers on screen, I'm just like, oh god, this is hell. This is the 10th circle of hell. Like this, ugh. Like that did not make me want to watch. Like I already wasn't gonna watch the movie, but that made me want to watch the movie even less. So yeah, just Ezra Miller as a whole is a huge con for this movie, and I imagine it's going to be a huge con for a lot of people because a lot of people have not forgotten what Ezra Miller has done. A lot of people have brought it up recently. Like you think that Warner Brothers would obviously want a lot of the stuff Ezra Miller did, like they want to like sweep it under the rug, but I haven't forgotten. I won't forget. I'm not just gonna ignore it because oh look, big superheroes on screen. Here's Michael Keaton. They're just throwing like throwing cameos at my face. I don't care. Ezra Miller is a bad person. Okay? I don't want to watch anything that has to do with them. Okay? And that's final. I'm not going to change my mind. So, yeah, Ezra Miller as a whole is a huge con. Another huge con is the DCU as a whole, at least the DCU like the last few years, because goddamn, it's been rough. I mean, let's go through the whole history of DCU. Man of Steel, BVS, Suicide Squad. None of these movies were labeled good. Although I kind of like Man of Steel. I'm one of the few who do. BVS and Suicide Squad, those are not good movies. Wonder Woman was a good movie. Justice League I thought was fucking trash. That almost made me give up on DC movies as a whole. Um, Aquaman I didn't like very much, but a lot of people did. I recently watched Shazam. I thought that was pretty good. Haven't seen Birds of Prey, so I can't really comment on it. Maybe I'll watch it in the future. But the movie got a pretty like kind of tepid response, and the movie underperformed financially. But it still looks better than literally all the other DCU movies that came out after it. Wonder Woman 1984 was fucking awful, and the movie did really bad. But granted, it had to deal with COVID screwing up everything. It came out like at the worst time ever for movie theaters, and it had to deal with the HBO Max experiment, as did the Suicide Squad. Both movies were victims of the experiment, and both suffered for it greatly. So yeah, but at least the Suicide Squad is a really good movie. And then you got Black Adam. I mean, some of you are probably wondering, what about Joker and the Batman? Those are not DCEU movies. Those are in their own bubbles. They're not relevant here, okay? But yeah, the next up is Black Adam, which DC, they tried so damn hard to make into a thing. They tried to make Black Adam like the next big thing. Like, oh, this is gonna make the next big, movie for like the DCEU. Like this is gonna like the power, like the hierarchy of power is changed and shit like that. They tried to make Black Adam a blockbuster so bad, and it just refused to happen. It opened like 67 million, made like less than 400 million on a budget of 200 million. That's terrible. I don't care what you say. That is a really terrible result. This movie lost money, and it pretty much killed the DCU right then and there, because after Black Adam came out, they announced the whole reboot. So yeah, and like the whole Henry Cavill Superman cameo, worthless now, because since he got fired, so Black Adam as a whole is fucking worthless. It means nothing, and that definitely applies to Shazam: Fury of the Gods, which came out like a few months ago. That movie had to deal with the fact that Dwayne Johnson did not want to play ball with Zachary Levi's, Shazam. He didn't want to be a part of that. So the Shazam 2 had to struggle to come up with, villains, and they came up with like some of the most generic villains of all time. And the movie, like, it just, no one gave a fuck about it at all. Nobody cared. I didn't even care. I literally forgot it was coming out until like a couple days before it happened. I was like, oh yeah, that movie. That's really bad for a movie like this. and it came out and it did horrible. Opened like 30 million, made like 57 million, had abysmal legs, and made like 132 million worldwide on a budget of 125 million. That is a catastrophe. Like it made Shazam 2 made less worldwide than the first movie made domestically. I don't think I need to say anything more than that. That speaks for itself. So yeah, the DCEU is in a death spiral. And I mean, it's gonna end like the next two movies, like Blue Beetle and Aquaman 2, and then that'll be it. But yeah, the DCU is in a really, really, really bad place right now. It wasn't in a good place before Shazam 2, but now it is. It's. I can't even describe it. So yeah, the DCEU, it's bad, dude. It is in a awful spot. And there's also the fact that the Flash, like all the DCU movies come out this year, they all feel kind of worthless because we all know the reboot's coming in 2 years. So why watch any of these movies, right? It's just like what happened with Dark Phoenix. Like everyone knew the MCU was gonna X Men were gonna be rebooted within the MCU. So why even watch Dark Phoenix? What's the point? And the same applies. That same logic applies to Shazam 2, to The Flash, to Blue Beetle, to Aquaman 2. Why watch any of these movies if we know in the grand scheme of things they're not gonna matter that much? I mean, The Flash matters the most because apparently this movie is supposed to like reset everything to like the new timeline, supposedly the new rebooted timeline. But yeah, just a lot of these DCU movies now they feel absolutely worthless. So I'm labeling that as a big con. The DCEU, as a whole, like, especially recently, that's a con. Um, Another con is that there's still like a lot of movies out right now. I mean, Across the Spider Verse. I feel like Across the Spider Verse may have doomed this movie. Hell, I think it may have doomed Transformers too. Like, I feel like Across the Spider Verse, like, it looked like that had real hype. Okay, people wanted to see that movie real bad. I was one of those people. And when it came out, everyone was like, damn, this movie is awesome. This movie is so cool and different and slick and fresh. Like this is what superhero movies should be. But with The Flash, like it just felt like, oh, just another superhero movie. Like The Flash never impressed me with like any of its stuff, like in the marketing campaign. Like it just looked so basic. Like at like no like wow, there was like no wow factor to the really anything except maybe Michael Keaton being Batman again. But besides that, there was just nothing for me to latch onto. Even if I didn't boycott this movie, I there's not much for me to latch onto. And I've heard the CGI in the movie is really bad. um, it's like absolutely horrendous at times. I've seen images, but I haven't seen like actual scenes of like bad CGI. I know there's gonna be YouTube videos of like montages of like bad CGI in the movie. I know those are gonna happen once the movie hits like Max and it hits like DVD and Blu-ray. You're gonna see tons of videos about that. And yeah. So yeah, I feel like Across the Spider-Verse killed this movie. I'm gonna say it. um so yeah, there's Across the Spider-Verse, which is still has a pulse. Elemental obviously is going to be a huge problem, but then you got like Indiana Jones in 2 weeks. You have Mission Impossible 2 weeks after that. You got to deal with those movies, and yeah, that's gonna be a problem. So I say competition later is gonna be an issue. So that's a con. Another con. I forgot to mention the holiday weekend, the double holiday. Sunday being Father's Day, Monday being Juneteenth. That will help this movie kinda. It won't be like stupid front loaded. At least I don't think it will be stupid front loaded for the weekend like other comic book movies. But um the problem is like next weekend, sure next weekend is quiet, but it's also post holiday, which means all those advantages you had the previous weekend are gone. So I imagine a decent amount of movies are going to be dropping hard next weekend. I think this is going to be one of them because I remember when people were saying like, "Oh, this movie's going to have legs," and I'm like, "No." I because I felt like this movie would really only appeal to like diehard fans. They're gonna be the main people watching this, and then afterward, and then everyone else is just gonna drop it or ignore it. So yeah, just uh, yeah, it is late. I forgot what I was saying, but yeah, I was mentioning post holiday weekend. That's gonna be a negative, so that's a con. I guess another con I can think of. I already mentioned Ezra Miller. I already mentioned um the DCU as a whole. Oh yeah, those cameos. I'm not gonna say the cameos because it's a spoiler. I don't want to spoil your experience of this movie, but I have seen some stuff on Twitter. I've seen some leaked screenshots of the movie and some of the cameos of it. And people weren't too thrilled about some of these cameos. In fact, the terms I've heard used to describe a very particular cameo are vile, evil, disgusting, abhorrent. A term that was also used was digital necromancy, which is that's a new one for me. Like I saw it and I was just like, Jesus Christ, you cannot be serious. They really thought this was a good idea. Like who approved this? Like I don't like like it's one thing to have cameos in your movie, like glorified cameos. It's a whole other thing to bring back dead people for cameos. That's just fucked up to me. That is not right. like like that does not sit well with me at all. Like they did that with like Ghostbusters Afterlife with like I think it was Harold Ramis. I think was it Harold Ramis? I'm pretty sure it was Harold Ramis. Where they brought him back to life, and I don't know. That's that yeah that definitely didn't sit right with me. But at least I had some narrative reason. um yeah, some narrative reason behind it. Like for the Flash, it's just there for cheap fan service, which is the worst reason to do a cameo. It's just like, hey, comic book fan, here you go. Here's a cameo. Cheer, clap. I hate that. Like that's the worst fan service. It's lazy. It feels like almost insulting to have fan service like that. Like if you're gonna have fan service, make it count. Okay, earn it. Don't just throw cameos on the screen. Like this was No Way Home. Like it earned the fan service because they actually did something. The big cameos of Toby and Andrew, they actually contributed to the plot. They didn't just show up for 2 seconds and then the peace out. You know, like yeah, I had to mention the cameos, which I'm not gonna name names, but if you've been online, you know what I'm talking about. Um, yeah, I feel like that's gonna be a negative for anyone who watches this movie. That's gonna turn people off, I would imagine, because I don't know how you can defend some of the shit like this movie actually did. Like I seriously don't. Um, yeah, I might as well label that as a con, especially for people who watch the movie, who end up watching the movie. Um, I think that's it. I'm pretty sure that's it. Yes, that is definitely it. So opening weekend, I remember like a couple weeks ago, people were like, "Oh, this movie's gonna hit like 100 million domestic." Like there was like these talks. This was gonna be a huge hit. That's not happening anymore. Those days are gone. Um, I'm expecting this movie. I mean, with Thursday preview, like with superhero movies, I've been like way more front loaded than ever before because all the diehards watch the movie first and then like they peace out after that. So I don't know. I think Father's Day will soften the blow a little bit, but I do think this movie will still be somewhat front loaded. You know, I'm trying to think about like a number. Original was like 100 million, but then it went down to like the 70, 80 million range, and even now I think that's a little too high. I'm gonna say, I don't know, 60 to 70 million opening weekend, maybe 4 day because of Juneteenth, maybe 70 to 75 million, which is a pretty shitty result for a movie that cost $200 million. That's no better than Black Adam. So, yikes. And then it's total. I don't see this movie having long legs. I see this movie being front loaded. All the fans show up week one, and then they just go away after that. I don't think its legs are going to be as bad as say Shazam 2's or Ant-Man 3's, but I don't expect them to be great. I expect this to reach 150 million, give or take, like maybe above or below 150 million. But I'm gonna go with 150 million. I'm gonna stick with that. And yeah, that's it for the Flash. That's it for the weekend. Yep, I'm done. So yeah, it's a pretty like this weekend could have been. I several weeks ago, I thought this weekend would have been real big. I thought we got a DC movie, we got a Pixar movie, we got like a solid piece of counter programming with The Blackening. I thought this weekend would be this weekend would be really strong, but the polar opposite has happened. All these movies are not performing all that well. The Blackening's doing the best. Like at least that movie might make a profit one day. Like it's rough. Like this is a rough weekend. A lot rougher than I thought it would be. And next weekend, it's not looking great either. It's a very slow weekend. I mean, we got none of these movies are looking like blockbusters like at all, but there's still stuff to talk about. So Asteroid City, God is a Bullet, No Hard Feelings, and Past Lives. We're gonna be talking about those four movies next week. So stay tuned for those. But yeah, that's it. That's all. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, turn on notifications, share the whole drill. We'll check out more videos like this. Got playlists on the homepage, all previous prediction videos I made this year. You want to watch my prediction video for Shazam 2? You can go right ahead. And all the other ones I've done the past few years, you can go right ahead. There's also the canceled series where I go over all the movies that were supposed to come out but didn't. I have covered the Flash movie multiple times because it got delayed a whole lot. So let's go through these. The first time I mentioned it was episode 7, a long ass time ago. I mentioned it alongside the Batman, Venom 2, In the Heights, and Shazam 2. Mentioned it alongside those. Second time was episode 21. Talked about alongside Dune, the Batman, Black Adam, Shazam 2, Monster Hunter, and Matrix 4, and I think Escape Room 2 as well. That was the second time. Third time was episode 99. Talked about it alongside the Batman and Black Adam again. So that's that. That was like the pre Warner Brothers Discovery era. Then the fourth time I talked about it was episode 112. Yes, 112. Talked about alongside DC League of Super Pets, Black Adam, Aquaman 2, Shazam 2, Wonka, Meg 2, all those movies. So yeah. That was the fourth time. Fifth time was episode 118. Yes, 118, where I talked about all the bullshit that went on with Ezra Miller, and I was just like, what is Warner Brothers gonna do about this? So how they're gonna handle this shit show? This shit show. Like, what are they gonna do? Like that was like what that whole video was about, because I was like, is this movie even gonna release at this point? Because of all this shit, are they willing to still release it? So that was the fifth time, episode 118. And then the final time was the sixth time. That was episode 167. Talked about it alongside Plane, Women Talking, Mickey 17, Mummies, Moving On, The Blackening. which is also coming out this weekend. um, and even like in the description, I put down like one would think Warner Brothers would delay it indefinitely or cancel altogether, but they are determined to release it on the big screen. Doesn't change the fact that I'm not going to watch it, and I've stuck to that. I made that video in December. I've stuck to it. Okay, I've stuck to that promise. I wasn't going to watch it. I'm not going to change my mind. So, yeah, that was the last time I talked about it before this video. So, yeah, you want to watch those cancel episodes or any other ones I've done on the channel? I recently did like 2 that were based off like Disney changing release dates because of the writer's strike. That was episodes 193 and 194. So, you want to watch those or any other ones I've done? Go right ahead. All 194 episodes. You want to watch them all from beginning to now? I highly encourage you to do that. So, go do it. There's also box office recaps where I go over the box office results for any particular month. June recap will come out in mid-July, around the same time Dead Reckoning Part 1 comes out. Boy, there's going to be a lot to discuss, and like 90% of it is probably going to be negative. There's really like, of all the movies this month, there's only one real hit, and that's Across the Spider-Verse. Everything else has ranged from okay-ish to bomb. And I don't think that's going to change like with next week's movies or with the week after that. I don't think that's going to change. So, and The Flash is going to be an interesting one to discuss because even though I'm not going to watch the movie, I do want to pay attention to its box office. I want to see how it does because I'm kind of rooting for it to fail, so, as you know, karma for Warner Brothers, you know, going through with this movie, you know, and not punishing Ezra like at all. Like, I hope it fails just, you know, for karma's sake. So, yeah, I'm crossing my fingers. So, yeah, but you want to, for the June recap, that'll be next month. But if you want to watch any of the past recap videos I made on the channel, you can go right ahead. And yeah, that's it. That's all. I am out. Goodbye.